All right, folks, one more time here on the LA Sparks 365 Network, coming your way back here with the roundtable for WNBA discussion and the LA Sparks. Welcome in, folks, to the Fabulous Forum, alongside a trio of WNBA expert analysts here. We have Chris Mancy at the Earnhardt Studios up in Anaheim, California. And coming off the bench to help us out, our Dynamite substitute broadcast team, Crystal Thomas from LA, and also joining us is Shorty Mamba 24 on Twitter. Gang, good evening. How's it going out there?
It's going fine. I'm doing great. Ready to talk WNBA basketball.
We will get to that. Now, Shorty, I know that you missed out on us last night, so we'll start with you here. We got Krista's take on Monday, and we had Crystal's take yesterday, or yesterday as well, but I wanted to get your thoughts, though, about the Sparks 2014 regular season. I know everything that occurred over the offseason was pretty much a big talking point and story for 35 straight days of complete nonsense, basically. But in a year where the Sparks were very up and down, more so down, a few injuries, some problems with some international basketball, relying too heavily on Candace Parker for most of the season, to finishing the year at 16-18 and in fourth place in the Western Conference. In your mind, okay, it was a year of transition, but what is your overall take, though, on the Sparks 2014 season, even though they clinched their record-setting 14th WNBA postseason berth in the league's 18-year history?
Man, them clinching the playoff spot was the best part about this terrible situation that went on with the Sparks this year in particular. I mean, coming into the season, I mean, after all of the off-season stuff that went down and then finally settling in, I mean, we thought at least this team, actually to be truthful, everyone thought LA was going to be Phoenix this year. Everyone thought LA would be first seed or at least second seed, somewhere near the top of the West. But then when actual gameplay went down, I mean, just everything went left field. I mean, dealt with injury to Candace Wiggins. Like you brought up before, we had some overseas situation going on with Kristi Toliver and her play during the middle of the season with the Slovakian national team. And it was just so many things that went wrong with this team. I mean, Candace Parker and Nneka Ogwumike, tried their best, and they brought their A game every game to keep this team afloat and keep them in the winner's circle. But it's just it didn't happen. And the interesting thing was just the home woes. They couldn't win at home to save their lives. I mean, last year they finished I think 16-1, if I can recall.
15-2.
Yeah, they went from that to 7-1 at Staples, which is unheard of. I mean, usually LA's at their best at Staples, but it seemed like this year Staples was the enemy. It was their enemy, and they did better on the road this year, finishing plus 500, 9-8. But just with all the turmoil and then the firing of Carol Ross, Penny Toller coming in from GM to head coach, finishing with a 6-6 record, by the way. I'll give her props for that. But, I mean, just all of the craziness happened, and it eventually led them to 4th seed in the Western Conference.
Crystal, I know that you're that in your off time that you also, I think all of us in some fashion here have played a sport in some fashion, baseball, basketball, whatever it may be. And Crystal, I mean, at all, I mean, at least going to you, I know that I think you still play a little bit off and on, but isn't it pretty much like drilled home that you have to defend your home court or home turf at least when you play those home games? And I think the Sparks this year did a complete 180 where where the road went from being the House of Horrors to it being Staples Center, the entertainment and basketball capital of the world, / the Sparks House of Horrors. It was their haunted mansion, to say the least, because that team, like Shuri said, could not win a home game if you put their, their living trust on their home games, because every night it seemed like you were either holding on for dear life or the team was going to be used as Clorox to clean the floor after the game ended. Crystal, in your mind, though, why? Is there like a specific reason, or why do you think the Sparks had so many problems, though, winning at Staples Center this year, where last year they were dynamited at home last season?
I think it was pressure. Everything that happened, from the coach being fired to Chris Oliver going overseas for a month. I just think it was pressure on the players to kind of make us feel special. I think last year was more fun for them. This year it seems like they had so much more problems going on that it wasn't fun anymore. It became more like a job, and so in that issue, I think what made them Staples and felt pressure to win for them.
Chris, to you, I know that, the home games some of them were pretty atrocious, like when the Sparks got rolled by the Mercury by 20 points, or in the case where I went, though, for those two games, both those games, the Sparks lost by a combined total of 7 points. They lost by 5 to Phoenix on May 18th. They lost by 2 at the buzzer to Liberty. But, Chris, in your view, though, okay, so the Sparks have a, terrible home record. But, Chris, how about the team, though, doing a different 180, but somehow winning their games on the road, where last year, everything was vice versa. They were dynamite at home, couldn't do anything on the road, where this year it was, better on the road than it was at home.
I think they just had some curse at Staples Center this season or something, and this whole gets turned around with the new head coach, with Quinn Toller right now, doing a good job right now, and we'll see during the playoffs what's getting going, and we'll see next season.
I blame Dwight Howard for cursing Staples Center for every team there but the LA Kings for winning the Stanley Cup this past season. But Shorty, I know that you're kind of a bit sensitive / don't really like talking about the subject, but it has to be brought up, though, again. And it's also a big turning point in the season that kind of derailed the Sparks off their championship hopes, was again when Kristi Toliver did leave in early June to go fulfill obligations with the Slovakian national team, as Shorty did bring up. And guys, there was a fantastic article written in the Washington Post that I did retweet on the Sparks 365 Network Twitter handle that very much talked about the emotions that Toliver was faced with, in the locker room, on the bench, and after the games, basically, and even on road trips before she made her move overseas. Now I have a little birdie in my ear that works in the Sparks front office saying that the Sparks gave her full permission to leave midseason to go try up with the Slovakian national team. At that same time, they did weigh options of signing Sam Prohalis, as we saw in Drake Morris. Also listed on that list of guards was Anita Slaughter, who you may remember was drafted 3rd overall in the 2014 draft, as was a familiar face named April Sykes, was also on that list of guards that could have signed with LA as well during that time. But, okay, Shorty, I know this is kind of like your bowling point topic here, like how I am a lot when people rip Candace Parker for no reason. But, okay, the Sparks gave her the full, full credit / the full trust of her going overseas to play during that time. And we know that things went a bit down south there, but your final take about that, and is that really a turning point for the season for LA?
I think it most definitely was a turning point in the season for Los Angeles. What Kristi Toliver provides to the Sparks is, that outside threat, that perimeter threat that they were without, in that they needed so badly. She opens up the lanes, she opened things up for the bigs, Candace Parker, Nneka Ogwumike, Jay Laugh, and without her, LA struggled from the perimeter because sadly, our other remaining guards, and Lindsey Harden and AB, struggled from the perimeter, which allowed opposing teams to just collapse on the bigs. And that was the struggle for Los Angeles, and that's what they were missing in Kristi Toliver. And I know it was tough on her. She didn't. She got approval from the organization to leave. but deep down inside, she, really didn't want to. But it's a necessity. In the article that you brought up, uh, they were talking about, just the struggle with women basketball players to, make a living outside of, the WNBA in the summer, and then the need for them to go overseas to, make a living, outside of the summer and after the summer, where they have to go in off season and, play for, their overseas ball clubs. And that's the struggle that KT had to go through this season. And I defended her for that reasoning. I know there were some Sparks fans who felt like, she wasn't being loyal to the team. They needed her the most. The fans wanted to see her. So they kind of felt some sort of way as if she was betraying the organization and the fans, but I certainly didn't believe that and defended her reasoning for, going overseas. And even though she missed a month nearly, I mean, she came back, and when she did, the team got back on track, and it was a good thing for Los Angeles.
Crystal, I mean, this has been, this is probably, the first talking point when you think about the 2014 season is the loss of Kristi Tolliver. I actually think it was basically, a double whammy, basically. You lost Candace Wiggins game 1 in Seattle to a swollen knee, which turned out to be a torn meniscus, then losing Tolliver, of course, to the Slovakian national team commitments. Crystal, I mean, what was your thought, though? I mean, we heard Shorty, she gave a nice little recap about that, but what was your thought, though, when you first heard that Tolliver would be gone for those first 4 games in June when she did leave for Slovakia?
I kind of thought, at first I thought, we could probably hold it down without Tolliver. Then I realized, even though I already knew, I realized how important LA still wasn't there. I think people think of LA, they just think of Candace Parker, but it proves you LA, you think of KT as well, and NECA and AB, is all of them, and it proves you how important a team really is. And I don't think people realize that being without KT, we're going to be in such a struggle. And it was a struggle. There was games where her 3-point shooting could have really helped us get through a lot. And you realize that in games, like just easy games, it was hard to sit there and watch them struggle without as I like to call it, team guys. It's hard to sit there and watch a team struggle with the player that you know they need.
Chris, the Sparks went 1-3 in that 4-game stretch when KT was gone. Losses to Atlanta, Washington, and then that first loss to the Lynx at home. Their only win was that beatdown in Chicago. Chris, obviously both those 2 players were missing, but what was your take, though, and stance about KT leaving midseason for Slovakia?
I thought it was a bad move for KT going overseas because we need her 3-point shooting since the Sparks had pretty much no one. Then Lindsay couldn't even shoot the 3 and everything. And needed her. Came back. Sparks going good, but we needed her. So
Shorty, as we move away from the Tolliver snafu, we'll go to another turning point of the year, which I believe is that 4-game skid, which included 2 whitewashings, courtesy of the Minnesota Lynx, a loss basically at the buzzer in Tulsa, then another beatdown in San Antonio. Again, a stretch where where Tolliver did come back, but again, 4 straight losses though. To a team that you kind of figured you'd lose to in Los Lynx. I kind of figured that those games would be losses early in the year. But then a loss to the Shock at the buzzer, basically, in a game that went back and forth all night and then getting completely hammered by the Stars, though. I think that's, another main turning point is 4 consecutive losses. I think it's probably like one of their longest losing stretches in quite some time, I think. But, I mean that was, that's unacceptable right there, okay. Okay, maybe the 2 losses versus the Lynx weren't really unacceptable, but I mean, okay, losing at the buzzer to who is right now tied for last place in the Western Conference, and then the team that just got ahead of you for the number 3 seed. What was your thoughts about that 4-game skid earlier in the year?
I mean, like you said, the those 2 losses to the Lynx were understandable, but I did watch that game versus Tulsa, and I just wanted to rip my hair out of my head because they had no business losing that game. And I mean, yeah, KT was just coming back, but the team just seemed like they were discombobulated. You know, they were trying to get back in the groove, you could say, and they just, I mean, nearly just at the buzzer, you know, just gave away that game. I would say gave away because, like, during the last minutes of the fourth quarter, I mean, both teams was basically trying to give each other the game, basically. LA wasn't scoring, Tulsa wasn't scoring, but LA just decided to stink up the joint worse enough to just fluke and give away that game. Now, the San Antonio game, yeah, I thought that was also a winnable game too, but, you know, just by the second half, they kind of ran out of gas. So that was the story to me of their 4-game losing skid.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, the games with the Lynx were understandable. The shot game was basically, you know, back and forth and who can make the most mistakes for someone scoring points on the scoreboard. And then San Antonio was winnable until the gas gauge went from full all the way down to empty in that second half. Crystal, 4 straight losses. Again, in a point in time where the Sparks, they sort of began tanking water like the Titanic did many years ago in the Atlantic Ocean, and they were, you know, a sinking ship basically. You know, SOS flags were up and flares were firing off across LA. Your thoughts about that 4-game skid, and more so about those 2 games that probably LA should have won, which was Tulsa and San Antonio.
You know, that was hard to watch, especially as a fan. You know, like, it's over. You know, and some of the things are low. So even then, that made it work. But you know, you want to. It's kind of like a scary movie where you hold your face. You know, you hold your hands over your eyes. You don't want to watch. You know, it's scary. That's what it felt like. It was one of those kind of things. You're just kind of like, man, is it over? But you can't look away. And the, you know, the 2 games that we could have won, like, it was where they were at a certain point in the game. I guess they felt like they were already up. It's not try to lose, and I think that's what they thought. Instead of trying to keep the lead, they were like, let's not try to lose and not taking too much, end up, you know, those easy games, especially with Tulsa. Each games, and I think that's we're not trying to lose that aspect came up, and when you start making negative happens. So their mindset.
Chris, you know, 4 losses again, like we've said again. Okay, 2 that we knew that they would drop, which was to the Lynx, and then basically losing at the buzzer in Tulsa, and then getting whitewashed by the Stars. Your thoughts about that 4-game skid, because that was that's another major turning point of the season. Is, you know, they had 4 straight losses and just couldn't rebound. It seemed like after going down under that bad.
Yeah, just 2 losses were pathetic. Sparks should have won. But one of those games against Phoenix, if we would have not got dug in a hole, probably could have beat Phoenix, but dug in a big hole and came short.
Chris, we were not even talking about Phoenix, but okay, we will accept it and move on. Shorty, about pulling hair out. I would pull my hair up, but I don't want to mess up my baby hair, unfortunately. So I can't be doing that, unfortunately. But I'll do it when I'll do it again when my hair grows out during the off season. But staying with baby hair, but the real baby hair though of Candace Parker, who Shorty was caught on camera by Sue Faber of Hoopism.com in her blog, basically going ham on Gail Gustencourt in a game against the Lynx early in July, I want to say, or the third time the Lynx came to Staples Center to play. And honestly, in 10 years following the game and watching her career for the past 7 years, that might be the most animated, fired up, and very frustrated I've ever seen her in her career. When you saw that, though, did you think there was that, when you saw that sort of encounter happen between those two, did you have a sense or a feeling that there may have been a move coming sometime soon at all, perhaps?
I did. I really did. I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen Candace Parker just be so animated and literally like go off on an assistant coach, much less a head coach. But yeah, the little verbal, you could say, altercation somewhat of between CP and Gail Geston-Chorus, I knew that yes, that was the nail on the coffin, not only for Gail but Ross. I mean, a little bit before the All-Star break, I knew that Carol Ross would be fired, but when things went down, I didn't think that Gail would go along with her. Now remember, Gail was not fired. She voluntarily resigned due to her allegiance to Carol Ross. But yeah, that altercation right there, I mean, I knew something was up, and I knew something was going down behind the scenes. And also quickly to bring up not only just that altercation, but then I'd say in LA's second game, either second or third game against the Lynx this season, I mean, CP was so pissed that during the final 12 seconds of the fourth quarter, she walked off. She walked off. I didn't even see her shake anyone's hand. She walked off and went straight to the locker room. She didn't even stay behind like the players do and give, celebratory handshakes. She just left, and I knew then, like, yeah, it was real.
Crystal, I think again, when I saw Sue's blog about that altercation again, and seeing Candace that animated and fired up for the first time ever, I've seen her that upset in her career. I think one of those photos, by the way, became the splash page to renew your season tickets for 2015. I think when it's the Ignite page, I think. But Crystal, when you saw that altercation, either you were watching on TV or if you may have been at that game, perhaps at the big office, your reaction and your thoughts, though, that okay, if the star player is this pissed off, is something on the horizon very soon for this coaching staff? What do you think?
I kind of knew at that point stuff was going haywire. And you see, it's a little fight. The teammates didn't know what was going on. You see, that looked pretty confused. At that moment, you could tell the game was pretty much gone. That's when Candace Wiggins had to step in and kind of get people back to, but after that, you're really not going to understand what's going on. You got your star player and you're going at it, and you're just kind of feed off of that energy. You have some star players, so if they see or feel something's going wrong, they're going to play like something's going wrong. And that's not why they lost that game as they did. And I kind of figured that would be the hit. I was hoping she would have made it off the transition, but unfortunately didn't go that way. Everything started downhill.
Chris, you and I sat here on July 21st during our extended edition of the 365 show at the top of the hour that night, and I showed you those photos via screen share from Sue's blog. And for one, Chris, the score was already 25-10 Minnesota. They already down 15 in the first quarter. And, I mean, some of those photos were pretty graphic, that, Parker is, like, literally, in the face of Gail Geston-Chorus, to the point where, as Crystal alluded to, again, that you have to have Candace Wiggins in her, street clothes attire, in her dress and heels come out there and sort of, get the team back on track while Parker is still trying to rip, Gail's head off and eat it for dinner, perhaps. Your thoughts, again, about, seeing the MVP and, the LA franchise player being that animated about the coaching staff, and after that, did you think that there would be a move sometime soon?
Because she doesn't like to see the team in this position losing because she wants to win her long-lived, like you said, WNBA championship, and she doesn't like to see the team this bad, like the Tulsa Shock, and she doesn't want to see her team cursed at Staples Center since Dwight Howard.
Shorty, you brought up a great point, and we'll go to you since you brought it up here again. Is about Candace walking off the court with that last 12-second span of that game at Target Center, which was before the last game of the year on the road, which was their House of Horse before they got that victory to clinch their postseason berth. And I thought I'd said it here that that might be the only time I ever do not defend Candace Parker in my entire remaining sports broadcasting / WNBA broadcasting or writing career, because that is an action that cannot be taken. I mean, you cannot leave the court for any reason. Now, if it's an injury, then I'll say yeah. But if it's just out of frustration, you don't do that. You just write out the ship. Let the game. Let the red lights come on and the buzzer sound, and let the confetti fall from Target Center. Then you shake your hands. You say hi to mine, everyone else, but just don't walk off the court. I mean, I can't really tolerate that unless she was injured, which I know she was, and we'll get to her injury problems in a second. But Shorty, your thoughts though about seeing her? I mean, out of frustration, perhaps, yes. But again, your thoughts though about seeing her, leave the court before the game ended.
I definitely, do not. I do not, agree with what she did either. I mean, regardless of, like you said, doesn't matter how frustrated she was during the game, thinking maybe I could have played better or the team, all of us collectively could have played better. I mean, you still have to keep a level of professionalism at the end of the day, and you have to, shake everyone's hand and, congratulate everyone. I mean, you don't even have to talk to, the players afterwards. You could just leave right after. But, I mean, you still have to show a level of sportsmanship, even through that frustration. And her just walking off, not saying anything. I mean, she didn't even shake hands with anyone, not even her own teammates. She just basically got up and just left. And, I mean, I didn't like seeing that side of CP, but it happened.
Yeah, this was the first time ever since I've started watching her play in college up until now that I could actually join the other fan side of the story with all the tweets about her leaving the court and everything else included, basically all the trash talking stuff. Because Crystal, I know that if you did that you might not play your next game perhaps in your basketball league perhaps. But your thoughts though, I mean, about seeing the franchise player, and the star player for the Sparks again, just prematurely for no reason, just storm off the court because the score was well out of reach in the last 12 seconds of the game.
I think CP has the bathroom. That's the only thing I can think of. He's going to the toilet or something. He had a case of LeBron. But on all serious, I agree with you. He's frustrated. There's, I've been before this game where things just aren't going your way, and anything that happens is not going to be happening. You have to remain professional. You have to high-five everybody afterwards, but the game's not over until that buzzer sounds. Even if the score's, you still gotta keep that buzzer sound. Unfortunately, like I said, I like CP, but unfortunately that was a bad move. I'm not gonna judge on that one move. Stuff was going wrong. That's when we started to see the that we had.
Chris, I know you and I talk daily, and I'm not going to lose any ounce of love for Candace Parker just because she walked off the court. I mean, it's happened in other sports, where we've seen that happen during games. I famously remember one time when Patrick Waugh, who was a goaltender with the Colorado Avalanche, left in the middle of the game after the coach left him in to give up 11 goals to the Detroit Red Wings. So I mean, it's not the first time it's happened. But Chris, I mean, seeing it here though, in this, with the Sparks, and seeing it though, I mean, and out of all the players, Chris, I mean, it could have been, one of the bench players perhaps, Chris, but seeing, the main attraction for every opposing team's fan base to leave the court though, unacceptable. by all means, by all of us here in the Hang Up, I think by everyone across the league that, you just don't do that regardless of the score of the game. Your thoughts, though, about seeing that happen, though?
Just bad move. Just like Crystal said, it's not over. Wait to the buzzer and just play it out, even though it's scored.
Yeah, I mean, just, right off the ship, regardless if it's a 1-point game, a 10-point game, or in some cases playing Phoenix if you're down by 20. Game's not over till that buzzer sounds. Shorty, as we go back to you, okay, so we got through most of the parts of the regular season. There's not much else to do here with the regular season except, basically put a cap on it, basically. Gave us, the Sparks get in with the 4 seed, and as we do that, we will again remind you folks that we began the year back on May 16th with 12 teams all vying for the WNBA championship. Up until Saturday or Sunday, we went from 12 down to 8. 8 teams, four of them from across each conference, will battle it out for the WNBA title. Shorty, we're going to start with the Eastern Conference matchups here. We already got Chris and Crystal's take in the coming past 2 days, so you guys can hang out here, those other two, and we'll get Shorty's take here and her thoughts on the postseason. So, Shorty, we got Atlanta playing Chicago. Chicago won the overall regular season 3-2. Shorty, I asked Crystal last night about the problems that the Dream have in the finals. Okay, we know that they can get through round 1 and 2, but what has been their problem, though, going into the WNBA final series, though, when it really counts the most?
Minnesota. Just point blank period, Minnesota. Now, I will give the Dream the benefit of the doubt and say that if they possibly meet another Western Conference foe in any other WNBA finals, minus this year with Phoenix, but if they met anyone else, I'd say the Dream would probably win that series. But they've been having the bad luck of beating Minnesota, and they just didn't have enough in that series to beat the Minnesota Lynx. Or back in 2010, don't forget when they met the Seattle Storm before the Storm trashed them and won their series. But the Dream, I mean, they're intriguing. I mean, they have a great front line, and they can match up. I say they can match up very well with Chicago. And even though I would say Atlanta's bench, I think Crystal brought this up on yesterday's show, that even while the Dream's bench does exceed Chicago's bench, I mean, Shoni Shimo, you got crap, who else? Demeric, I think Demeric is starting. So then you have forgot that other player's name, sadly, who used to play with the Washington Mystics.
Mati Ajavad.
Yeah, you got Hayes. I love me some Tip Hayes, but you got. I'll say it on here right now. I love Tip. I love Jasmine Thomas. Yeah, that was the player who I was thinking of. So you got Jasmine Thomas, and then for Chicago, you have their good bench led by Allie Quigley, but it's just gonna be great seeing the matchup of stars. You got the Atlanta Post versus the Chicago Post, and then you have the Dream Star and Angel McCoughtry versus Deladon of the Chicago Sky. But when everything is all said and done, I personally have Chicago as my sleeper team. They are my sleeper team in the East. I have them in 3 very close contests, beating the Dream 2-1.
Crystal, how are you not celebrating about your hometown team in Chicago getting past Atlanta that Shorty just predicted?
Because I'm holding all the excitement in. I don't want to cheer.
She happy about this one.
I'm smiling because I can actually I will say outside of the Sparks, I will say I have a little love of Chicago because that's my hometown and everything. So if Chicago actually was to get to the finals, I probably might secretly throw in a cheer in there. I might secretly have to celebrate. I might have to do a KT high step for Chicago one or I will agree though. I will agree about Chicago being a sleeper team. Either Chicago or Indy. That's who I pick. Like we got, it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick. I can pick Chicago. We get out a couple get to the final.
Shorty, you brought up a few good points about the Chicago Sky, and they had a very turbulent season like LA did after the Sparks pretty much Cloroxed them at Allstate Arena 102-88 with EDD in the lineup. And then, of course, when EDD leaves, that team also tanks water like the Titanic as well. And they went down south for a long time before Elena got back in, but now they're fully healthy. They have Deladon back. Courtney Vandersloot's also back. She had a bit of a hip/leg problem earlier in the year. I mean, kind of a downfall, I think. Kind of rough for Chicago to go all the way from 1 to the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Shorty, what was your take, though, about the Sky this year? Again, they had a very rough year again with without EDD for a while. And how do you think they rebounded, though, when they did get her back in the lineup finally?
I mean, when they finally got her back, it did great things for Chicago because even though Sylvia Fowles, started her career with the Sky and been the leader of the Sky, I'd say EDD has taken over as just that premier player for the Chicago Sky. So the Sky will go as far as EDD takes them. And, when they finally got her back from, her dealings with her Lyme disease, it got them, in that 4th spot. And that was a surprising because, they were on an up and down seesaw, just like the Sparks this year. And also, let's not forget, Big Sil was dealing with her own injuries. She had surgery as early as March, and, it took her a while to get back into game shape. But when she got back on track, right along with EDD, they did great things for Chicago, and, which led them to that 4th spot. And, what, everyone being healthy, they are my sleeper. Rejoice, Crystal. They are my sleeper team.
Yes, Lord.
There you go, Crystal. That's what we want to see. So, some enthusiasm over there. Good job. All right, Shorty, to the other Eastern Conference playoff matchup, which will feature the 2-seed Indiana Fever and the 3-seed Washington Mystics. Both teams finished equal at 16 and 18, but the Fever get the nod as the 2-seed with thanks to the tiebreaker basis in that matchup. Shorty, to the Fever, again, as I told Crystal last night, a lot to play for in the final year of the great head coach Lynn Dunn's 40-plus year women's basketball coaching tenure. And I think they got hot at the right time when they did finally get Tamika Catchings back in the lineup after her back problems early in the year. Shorty, what do you think here? I'm going to bring up a point about the Fever when we get to the Sparks momentarily in the next playoff series. But looking at it here again with Coach Dunn retiring, that added incentive to play it even harder in the postseason. What do you think comes out of the series between Indy and Washington?
Oh my goodness, there's a lot of things. This is a battle of, let's start at the top. This is a battle of 2 great veteran coaches, Lynn Dunn and Mike Tebow. And then when it comes to the teams, they're nearly the same, but they're also polar opposites. You have an older veteran,
so they're bipolar, basically?
something like that. But you have an older veteran-led team in the Indiana Fever versus a very young and almost inexperienced, minus a few of the players. But for most of the part, you have a very young roster in the Washington Mystics. So, with all of those dynamics coming together, like I said, it's going to start at the top at coaching, which is why this is going to be a great series because, you have Lynn Dunn and then you have Mike Tebow, which are two very great and experienced coaches. And, I mean, yes, you're going to have that Tamika Catchings, almost Mo Curry matchup.
Mo Curry.
Crystal. or either that, what? Or either that Mo Curry Cream of Christmas matchup. And it'll be, I could say, personally for me, it'll be a good thing to see Marissa Coleman in this playoff matchup because I've been giving her so much crap for the past 2 years when she was with the Sparks, but she came in with this new team, the Fever, for her, and she turned the tide, and she really surprised me this season, and I have to give her props. I mean, Rissy, she did her thing this season, but when it comes to a final result, I mean, I'm going to take experience over inexperienced playoff roster, so I'm going to go Fever. I say Fever 2-1. 2-1 because even with the inexperience of the Mystics, I say they're going to have the fight. They're going to have that fight, that passion, and that drive to at least win one game of the series. I say they're like the East Coast version of Tulsa as far as, that toughness and that grit. They don't give up. You saw that 3 OT versus the Sparks. I mean, they did not give up. Lada, who is my favorite player, me and Calvin's favorite player on the Mystics, didn't give up. She went insane, and I expect no different from Ivory in this playoff series.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one regardless if it's Indiana or Washington, two teams that are going to have veteran coaching experience, and again you have pretty much a seasoned Indiana team against a very young up and coming Washington team. As we shift back to the West Coast, we'll begin our Western Conference playoff breakdown with Shorty, with the most dominant team in quite some time in WNBA history, the 29-5.
Oh my goodness!
Mercury up against the number 4 seed Los Angeles Sparks. The Mercury clean sweeped LA in the regular season 5 matchups, winning 5-0. Shorty, I told Crystal last night that there is no flaws in this Mercury ball club, and I truly think that their slogan is correct, that glory is awaiting the purple and orange down there in the desert to bring back the WNBA title to the desert. Real quick, we will mention real quick that we actually do want to quickly send some thoughts and prayers to the people that have been affected by the raging flooding over there. It's been very chaotic in Phoenix, so we will do that real quick there. Shorty, try your best here to give us a preview here and your thoughts about what could be a very quick series sweep here for the Mercury that might end if I'm there on Sunday at Staples Center.
Yes, oh my Sparks. I mean, I rock with them. I love them dearly, but I am a Sparks fan, but I am also a realist, and I do not see them getting out of the first round, much less getting out of the series. I mean, Phoenix, they've just been perfect. And I rarely use that word to describe anything, but Phoenix have been just nearly perfect, besides maybe their matchups with another top-notch heavyweight in the Lynx, of course. But other than that, they've just been the best team, not only in the West, but just throughout the WNBA this season, shredding through everybody. They had their machetes out, just knifing, blading everybody. And the Sparks, I mean, like I said, I love them, but I mean, they've just been so inconsistent this year. It's hard because you don't know which Sparks team is going to show up this year. I mean, is it going to be, in regards to the playoffs, which Sparks team will show up? The Sparks team that went on a 4-game losing skid, or that team that have, everyone on page leading them is a CP right along with big shot Christy Tolliver, and that's just my Achilles heel for them. Is I don't know which Sparks team is going to show up. With the dominance of the Mercury, I have this series ending sadly in a sweep for the Sparks, with the Mercury going 2-0 basically. But quickly, I will give some benefit of the doubt to the Sparks and say that what might work out in their favor in the series possibly is they have been a better road team than they have been a home team. Like I said before, finishing the season at 9-8 plus 500 on the road. I mean, I'll at least say for the Sparks, they're not scared of Phoenix. Maybe us fans are, but the Sparks aren't scared of Phoenix, and they're not intimidated by their fans at U.S. Airway Center. They're not afraid. So LA's going to come in, ready to go. It's just, I don't think they'll make it out alive in the first round.
This is probably going to, as the Mercury Twitter page last night said it perfectly, that there's no better way to open up the postseason than with the only, like the main original rivalry from 1997 with two teams like the Sparks and the Mercury who have owned the WNBA minus the Houston Comets and maybe the Detroit Shock as far as titles go, between the Comets' first 4 and the Shock winning 3 titles before they went to Tulsa. But it's two well-decorated, well-known, well-respected WNBA franchise and two great teams. And again, this is actually the only remaining rivalry from '97 that's still left. So what better way to do it than having the Mercury beat LA in those first 2 games and move on to play either Minnesota, who had a bit of a down year this year, finishing the season at 25-9 this year. They got the 2 seed, will take on the 3 seed San Antonio Stars in the first round of the postseason. Shorty, I told this to Crystal last night, is this has not been the same Lynx team that I have sort of, I've seen over the past few years, that I've sort of known, respected, and sort of loved in a part way, because they probably have the 2014 WNBA regular season and perhaps Finals MVP and Maya Moore on their side still. But some injuries have sort of plagued their season. They kind of got beat up on the Mercury a few times early in the year. What's your thoughts about the Lynx? A bit of a up and down season. Still, their 4th straight year of having 25 or more wins in the season, but just not the same sort of oomph in their steps this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the Lynx this year. I mean, just so many injuries, just was hitting players one by one by one. But it's interesting how they survived through all of that, led by the talented Maya Moore. And a lot of people felt like she should have won MVP last year, but obviously CP took it last year. So this year, I mean, there wasn't any competition, in my opinion. DT was close, but no. That MVP trophy had Maya Moore's name on it, written on it, day one. And, with her and, I mean, this series is going to be, in my opinion, one of the more intriguing series of the Western Conference. I mean, both teams have a lot to play for. I mean, Minnesota is basically going to be playing for respect. And I know you're thinking, what? This team has all the has all the respect in the world. But it's just the thing that, with Phoenix's dominance, they're fighting for, that respect to just, let people know that, okay, Phoenix is on top, but we're still the defending champs, and you guys are still going to have to get through us to, win the championship this year. So while the Lynx are going to be fighting for, respect, the Stars, on their part, this is the legendary and soon-to-be first female assistant with the San Antonio Spurs of the NBA. This is her last hoorah, so her and the Stars are going to rally together to, try to make a last run for Becky and, try to be a sleeper in the Western Conference. But when everything is said and done, I think the Stars can possibly force a Game 3, but overall, the Lynx is just too powerful for them. Just way too powerful for them. So I have the Lynx over the Stars in a 2-1 matchup.
Shorty, you brought up a great point that I wanted to get to here before we talk about the draft lottery and our thoughts about the 4 teams that didn't get their tickets and their invites to the full-season party this year. But again, it's going to be kind of somber when you see Becky Hammon leave, and she does go on the sidelines of the Spurs bench for the next NBA season coming up here in October. But Shorty, I was kind of thinking about this last night and earlier today. It's just going to be very sad and depressing when you finally see these pioneers, these legends and icons like Becky, and sometime soon when it's going to be Diana's turn to walk and Stu Bird's time to walk, and whenever DMJ decides to walk and swing cash, because we all in some fashion have grown up watching these ladies play, whether it was in college like I did when I saw UConn in her senior year, or it was when I was watching Parker play on television on ESPN2, in 2007, 2003. In your view, Bill, how different will it be for you to watch the WNBA when these pioneers, these icons like Hampton,
You gotta get out of here, I said.
and Bird and everyone else that we've seen watch,
No, I thought that's gonna be.
step away from the game?
Yeah.
I think
All right.
I think Shorty had some company. I think in her studio. Shorty, are you still there?
I did, Sally. Sorry.
Oh no, hey, don't worry about it. It's not the first time we've been interrupted by something here on the network. But I'm not sure if you heard. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if you heard the question. So I'll ask it one more time. But Shorty, in your mind, when you finally see all these legends and pioneers of the WNBA like Becky and Diana, Sue, maybe Lauren Jackson or DMJ or Swin Cash, when you see all these legends that you've sort of grown up with watching the WNBA, how different will the game be for you when you see all these players, finally call it quits and they have their numbers retired at the respective arenas in their respective cities with their respective clubs and teams?
To me, it's going to be, sad, and fans across the WNBA are going to be sad, but it just, in my opinion, shows the evolution of the game and the evolution of the WNBA. While we're going to have, legendary greats like Becky exiting the league and Tina Thompson last year and Katie Smith and players of that nature, we're going to have the new young guns coming in, the new generation that will one day be superstars of the league, like Shona Schimmel, Kayla McBride. You have Chiney Gumake and those players. Also, the rising sophomore stars in Brittany Griner and Elena Delle Donne. Also, soon to be named possibly most improved player of the year, Skylar Diggins. So, when you when you see, great players exiting, followed by great players entering in. I mean, it just shows the evolution of this league, and it's a great thing to see. But sadly, we all are going to miss Becky Hammon, seeing her, voted top 15 in WNBA history. I mean, it's going to be sad to see her go, but I'm ready to see her during the WNBA off season, beginning the NBA season as an assistant coach, first female assistant coach.
Crystal, I'm sure that we've all watched the WNBA here, either from, either 10 years ago like myself in 2004, or maybe longer perhaps. I mean, I'm sure we could have fans that were here, day one of the league in '97. And as Shorty brought up a good point about the evolution. I mean, where we went from watching Lisa and Nancy Lieberman and Tina and the Comet teams win 4 straight championships, and then after, and then years pass by, then you have, unsung heroes like Nikki Beasley in 02 beating New York at the buzzer at Staples Center. Or even nowadays, I mean, the league has, had its evolution basically. And Crystal, when you finally see, and when you do see Becky's last game, and then you see Diana Taurasi leave Phoenix, and then Sue Bird retires, DMJ retires, Swin Cash retires, how weird will it be for you to not see those players in uniform anymore within the next maybe 10, 15, 20 years perhaps?
I think, as a player, you kind of like, I know whenever Tamika Catchings decides to call it a game, I think it'll be a sad thing for a lot of WNBA fans. And the same with Becky Hammon. He kind of, she had an injury, and then I think she had another injury after she came back from an injury. So, you kind of just like, yeah, I think her time is up. But like you said, she's going to have a great career after basketball. And that's what she's going to bring a lot to men's game because she is going to be the first. Well, technically second because they had a woman summer league. So she is going to transition to the men's game. Hopefully that brings a lot of attention to the men's game because of her in the NBA coaching.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be depressing, when you see these great players that you have watched for an extended period of time, again, like Becky Hammon, from her day to being the face of the Stars franchise, how Diana Taurasi basically brought the Mercury up from the ashes of the WNBA in 2007 and 2009, bringing 2 titles there in 3 years. What all Sue Bird and Lauren Jackson did with the Seattle Storm, bringing that franchise a title in 2010. Their first pro title before was Seahawks, won the Super Bowl this past season. Delisha Jones with LA in 01 and 02. Went to Washington and came back here to play a stint during Parker's rookie year and a few years after that before going to New York. It's going to be, depressing, sad, have the tissue box nearby when you see these, players leave because in some fashion, I mean, we all grew up watching these players play in a small fashion. It's going to be very depressing to see all these, pioneers of the WNBA finally, take their place amongst WNBA immortality, basically, amongst the legends like Lisa, Leslie, and the Comets of the 90s up until their demise in 2008. As we move away from Becky Hammon's last game to the 4 teams that did not get invited to the postseason party, the 4 teams that are bound for Thursday's WNBA draft lottery, which, by the way, will be held on ESPN2 during halftime of the Fever Mystics game on ESPN2. Shorty, we're going to go through all 4 teams and see what needs to happen here. We'll begin with the Seattle Storm, who for the first time in 11 years will not qualify for the WNBA postseason. But they had a lot of consternation and problems again, highlighted by the age veteran Lauren Jackson. This is her second full season because of injury. Sue Bird's battle with injuries. They traded for Crystal Langhorne on draft day. Also got the other Aussie, Jenna O'Haye from the LA Sparks. Shorty, a very uncharacteristic Storm season. We're supposed to see them up there in the postseason picture, giving teams problems in the postseason. What did go wrong, though, for Brian Agler's team up there in the Pac Northwest?
I would say the injury to Lauren Jackson, and I'd say before the injury, I mean, she did agree to miss basically the season. Actually, to quickly start from the beginning, the original plan for Lauren Jackson this season was she was supposed to, not play for the first half of the WNBA season. She was going to train with the Australian national team to prepare for the FIBA World Games, later on this year after the WNBA season ends. And what she was going to do was come back after the All-Star break of the WNBA season and play in the second half of the season for the Storm. But then injuries kicked in, and she decided to forego the entire season. But I'll just say, besides injuries, I mean, it was just a lot of turbulence with the Storm. I mean, the Sparks beat them 5-0 this season, and I mean, I don't want to, disregard all of LA's wins, but I'm just wondering if, was, that 5-0 streak due to, the lack of, the bad play for on behalf of the Storm's part. Besides, was it more, the Storm just being bad versus LA just really being great? Because truthfully, that was the only team LA could, whoop on. I mean, everyone else we had a tough time with, but the Storm was just so bad that LA just, took them to the shed. But as far as them in the draft lottery, I mean, I'm not sure where they will be at, but I know they'll definitely be looking for the top pick in this draft. Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis out of UConn is the prize of this season. So Brian Agler in the Storm organization is going to be hoping that they get that top pick this year.
Then again, what basketball player in the women's game does not come from UConn is what I want to know. My goodness gracious. Shorty, staying with the Western Conference, we talk about Seattle. We're going to go to the Tulsa Shock now, Shorty, who have not been like the old almighty Detroit Shock since that franchise was sculpted Tulsa a few years ago. And they have had a major uphill climb, including going 3-31 in their first year in Tulsa a few years ago. And I think, as I told Crystal last night on the show, I think their future is bright between having Skylar Diggins, who was probably going to win Most Improved Player, and then their top draft pick, Odyssey Sims, in place. But they are still taking their licks by a big margin right now. Any sort of hope pretty soon that this Shock team either comes close to getting back in the postseason, or do they even have any more, or is there any more years like the Detroit Shock had it all left in this future, perhaps, knowing that they have two great young players here in Diggins and Sims?
I say, there are brighter days for Tulsa. Brighter days are coming, and they are coming quickly. I mean, they almost made the playoffs this year. If it wasn't for, the Seattle Storm giving Los Angeles some help. But other than that, I mean, yes, they are close. They're not there yet, but they are close, and they could make the playoffs within the next, I'd say, year or two, basically, if they played their cards right this off season. I'd say out of all the teams in the draft lottery, it's Tulsa that deserves the number one pick the most. The problem for them is that they seem to be cursed. I think the Shock of Tulsa are cursed. I mean, they've been needing a number one pick, and not just for this year, but for the past 4 years now, ever since their relocation to Tulsa, and they just been getting bad luck. But hopefully for them, they could win the lottery this year. And another thing quickly that they will have to decide is Cam Bage. What are they going to do with Cam Bage? everyone in the league knows that Cambage wants nothing to do with Tulsa. The thing is, it will be up to the organization to see what they will do with Cambage. Will they finally give her an ultimatum and say, okay, you either commit to us or we're going to have the guts to possibly pull off a trade for her next year. So we'll see what they do with the Cambage situation, whether she wants to even come back to Tulsa or not. But like I say, out of any other team, Tulsa deserves the #1 pick.
Yeah, I think Tulsa's probably the most needy team right now as we move to the Eastern Conference. But give me 1 second, though, folks, real quick. Is this Bill Lambier's retirement home? Okay, thank you very much. Folks, we're talking about the New York Liberty now, Shorty. If you probably caught my running gag last night with Crystal and Chris last night, you saw me mention that I believe the Liberty, who I believe have the oldest roster in the WNBA. The players, I believe, qualify for AARP benefits now, I think, Shorty. And Shorty, it really, though, in all seriousness here, that Bill Lambier's luck continues to be bad. I mean, he just continues to keep players whose primes were, 10 years ago, perhaps, when they were rookies, perhaps, on better teams. And it just seems like he's trying to build a winning team with old, outdated players, or what I like to call it is he's trying to build a team with dead batteries, basically. What has to happen for that Liberty team to get back where they rightfully belong, which is in the Eastern Conference playoff picture sometime soon?
Batteries.
Dead batteries is right. Not only just dead batteries, but dead batteries from Detroit. Because that's basically what Bill is trying to do. He's trying to revamp this New York Liberty roster using his old Detroit Shock method along with his former Detroit Shock players, and that's not a recipe for success. I mean, of course, he wanted to be reunited with the likes of Lynette Pearson, his former player, and tried to bring Deanna Nolan back from Russia. But yeah, that's not going to happen anytime soon. He tried to resurrect Cheryl Ford before she just basically call it a quits because her knees is just never going to give her the time of day. But the sad thing for the Liberty this year, and what everyone I think needs to know, is that the New York Liberty do not have a pick in this 2015 draft. They traded their first rounder to Connecticut during the Tina Charles trade. And what hurt them is that because the New York Liberty found themselves in the lottery, their pick that they gave to Connecticut in the Tina Charles trade became a lottery pick. So the draft order will go Tulsa, Seattle, Connecticut, and then at number 4, Connecticut via New York. So New York screwed themselves basically in a sense that they are not going to have a first-round pick in this year's draft because they gave it to Connecticut and they found themselves in the lottery as well. So that's pretty much the story with the New York Liberty this offseason.
You know, Crystal made the joke about Bill Lambier making a retirement home for outdated WNBA players, and we're both on point with the knocking on the door over here next to me and plus last night. I think the deal is, Shorty, and I told this Chris last night too, is for Lambier's case, if you're gonna draft players and then cut them, why bother giving them picks in the draft? You know, why not just, excluding the Liberty from the draft? Because Shorty and Crystal, that they will draft players and then just, okay, we don't need you, so we'll just, go with Pearson, we'll go with, any old players that, can help us somehow win games during the season. We're trying to bring back the Shock here in New York City at MSG. That's not going to happen anytime soon. You got to rebuild with young players. Now, if anyone out there is wondering about what happened to Megan Simmons, she was cut after the first 2 preseason games. Now, Shorty, I'm sure you recall that Tanisha Hardy was begging and pleading with hashtags across Twitter to get her to Los Angeles. My little birdie in the Sparks front office told me Megan played overseas this season to stay in shape after she got waived by the Liberty. So if she does come back to play in the WNBA, would the Sparks be a fit for her if she does come back to play next year over here in the States?
I think the LA Sparks would be a great fit for her, and I am hoping, right along with Trinisha, that they give her a training camp track next year so she can, try out for the team. And I'm hoping that she makes it, because I was a big fan of Megan Simmons during her Lady Vol days. And, she led the Vaults to, number 1 seed in the tournament this past spring. But as far as her with the WNBA, I was just so disappointed when not only did she get drafted into the late 3rd round, also is that New York was the team to pick her up, and I knew that was just a recipe for disaster, because during free agency, right before the draft, Bill had picked up a pretty good number of guards. He had already previously picked up guards like Sugar Rogers in the trade from Minnesota, and he already had Kamika Williams before she went down with the injury, and Cap and Anna Cruz, and guards like that already on the roster. So there was really no place for Megan Simmons on the roster already when she was drafted by the Libs. So that kind of hurt me, because I knew that she would, she wouldn't make the team once she was drafted by the Liberty. But I just hope that someone gives her a shot, and I'm hoping that the Sparks will be that team next year.
I think we all do, because I think the Sparks could use some more guard help for next season during the 2015 WNBA season. So we go from the oldest team who could possibly go to Bill Laimbeer's retirement home somewhere in New York City to a team that's probably fresh out of college and out of local bars, perhaps. Probably the youngest team in the entire WNBA, that team that plays at that arena in a city I cannot pronounce. The Connecticut Sun, again, another bad season again for the Sun. Shorty, Kristen and I brought up a few points last night that this might be the youngest team in the entire league, perhaps, where I believe 4 of their 5 starters are all in their 1st or 2nd year, minus Katie Douglas, who's in her 14th season already, or 13th year from Purdue University. I think their problem, though, Shorty, is their coaching, is their coach right now, which includes Ann Donovan and Miss Grandma Jennifer Gillum, as well as their assistant coach. But, Shorty, Connecticut, I think, has the better future of those 4 lottery teams for the next few years. What do you think, though, about the Suns' future with Shania Gumake and Elisa Thomas running the show up there in that city? I cannot pronounce that city's name right now.
I'd say, their future is bright, and I agree with you that, there are a lot of, good things coming to this Connecticut Sun team. I mean, yes, they do have the youngest roster in the league, but they have a lot of good young talent. So when you have good young talent, I mean, you can build pieces around players like Chinea Gumake and Alyssa Thomas. Also, they have a very young point guard coming in next year, hopefully fresh off an injury, Chelsea Gray. And what's going to be beneficial for the Connecticut Sun this year, as I already previously stated with the New York Liberty, is that the Connecticut, I'd say they have the most realistic chance of getting the number 1 overall pick this year, because they not only have their lottery balls, they have New York's lottery balls in their favor, as they have 2 lottery picks in this draft. So they could very well, if Connecticut gets the number 1 pick on their own accord, then that'll be good. But if New York gets the number 1 pick, then yeah, guess what? It's going to Connecticut. So they have 2 chances of getting Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis. And beyond that, I'd say they do have very good building pieces. I'm just not sure that Ann Donovan is that coach, to lead them to the promised land in the future. And I mean, to not just throw stones at Ann Donovan. Basically, we do have to remember that she did lead the 2004 Seattle Storm to their first ever championship, so she does have that on her resume. But just for this team, I don't think she's a good fit. And I say she's not going anywhere, though. They will keep her because youth will be one of the excuses of why she may keep her job, possibly for next year and possibly the next year after. But after those 2 years, and if this young, talented team doesn't, even make it to the playoffs within the next 2 years, then yeah, I can see her being out basically. But yeah, I don't think she's the right coach. But other than that, I mean, Connecticut, yes, they're in good hands with 2 lottery picks in this year's draft.
Shorty, real quick, I wanted to stay with this real quick, and we'll get everyone's take on this real quick. But I remember you telling me during the year that you had a wild dream that Carol Ross would get fired, and you felt that either Gail Gustenkors or Klopp would be her fill-in afterwards. Could you kind of see that happening, that if Ann Donovan continues to struggle in Connecticut, that perhaps Grandma Gillum could be back head coaching that team, perhaps?
Oh, Lord. Yes, I can see her being an interim coach for.
Oh, she said.
Yeah.
Oh. Intern.
Yes. 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 That's the tea in shade for tonight. Yes, I can see her.
Coach.
I can see her. I can see her taking over, but I'd say she'd probably either be fired afterwards and replaced with a coach to the Connecticut Sun's liking. I don't see her having, like a full-term season like she did with the Sparks. So I say they'll have her for maybe one particular season, but they'll bring in someone more to their liking after the season's over.
Crystal, what do you think here? I mean, okay, Ann Donovan's been there for a few years with Connecticut, okay, and you do have Jen Gillum perhaps waiting on the horizon to be that next head coach for Connecticut. What do you think though happens though if Ann Donovan continues to struggle though as these players mature in age?
I think it could be a bad thing, but it could also be good depending on if that was to happen, when it happens. If it happens during the season, I don't think they're gonna take it too highly because, like Shorty said, there's such a young team. But if it happens in the off season, maybe they'll get used to it. As long as it's not their intern, as Shorty just called them, I think they can get used to it. But if it's during the season, I think that's going to take a toll on them. I mean, we especially for them to be such a young team, we can see how that would affect everyone. Because like you said, that team can barely buy a drink legally. So
barely.
That team is really, 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 really young. So if they were to do that, I hope she doesn't get fired because, I mean, she has a young team. You gotta develop them. I hope she stays there for as long as they can because we don't want to see intern Gillum over there. Volunteer coach Gillum. We don't want that. I hope they keep Ann Donovan.
Yeah, and sort of staying with, a rental head coach, that would be the LA Sparks again, who, again, folks, back on July 20th, promoted Executive Vice President and GM Penny Toller to the head coaching position after they fired the current coach at the time, Carol Ross, after a miserable start to the season. And Shorty, I wrote a blog when I was before I had gone to Hawaii about my take on the firing of Coach Ross. And the point I kept driving home here is we know that they fired Ross, but again, you promoted Yes, a WNBA pioneer, you know, the person that scored the first points in league history, you know, back at the Forum against the Liberty in '97, you know, in the first, you know, minute of the game and stuff, like all the accolades and all the other resume stuff about Penny. But again, she never at the time coached a game in her career. And I thought this was like a point in time where the Sparks were going to lose every game played after that because, you know, Penny had no coaching experience. Kind of, you know, going back, you know, to last month, Shorty, when you heard about the Sparks hiring Penny Toller, your initial thought was like, oh my God, what are we doing, basically, or what was it?
Yes, that was my reaction. I was like, what in the hell is going on here? Like, what are we doing? What's going on? Am I dreaming? Seriously? But, yeah, they promoted general manager Penny Toller as head coach. And even though that was my initial reaction, but then when I read an article just about a week after she was hired, an article featuring Penny Toller in the Seattle Times with Jada Evans. She talked about the reasoning of why, you know, this happened. Basically, as we all know, LA was on a wrecking ball, basically. From the top, Magic and Mark Walter did not like what they saw, and they decided to give Carol Ross the boot. Now, the other tidbit that went on with that is the front office they felt like if they would have brought in another experienced coach, that he or she would want a contract extension after the season, and you know the front office was not willing to give that person a contract extension because they wanted to be given the flexibility to possibly hire whoever they want after this following season. So, you know, to alleviate all of that, they decided, you know, to give Penny the nod and tell her, okay, you go down and you coach this team, since she basically put all the pieces together. So it made sense, you know, at that moment to, you know, give Penny the job, and that's what happened.
Crystal, I'm sure you guys just saw that I had to scratch my head real quick, and it's not because of something, but, I mean, for one, it's a dandruff problem, yes, but two, though, Crystal, this was me, though, on July 20th, doing this to my head, not because of my dandruff problem, but why in the world would the Sparks, again, I know about Penny's resume and her accolades, and she's, you know, one of the more respected players that, you know, from the early 90s, but again, I was doing this the whole time, like, you know, are we trying to lose every game for the rest of the year that we did this? Because, again, Penny before that had no coaching experience. But, again, as we kind of found out, you know, this is just, you know, for the rest of the year. But, Crystal, again, to you real quick, your thoughts and your reaction about having Penny Toller hired was blank. What was it?
I was surprised. I didn't think Carol Ross would get fired that quick. I thought they would give her at least one more year, or at least until her contract went out, and then get rid of her. I was surprised. I was kind of shocked. I'm not even gonna lie. At first, I was kind of like, I don't think this is gonna be a good idea. But she kind of proved
that.
Yes, preach it to the choir.
Yeah, she kind of proved us fans that she can do it a little bit. I think the thing that I was bothered with at first is how she didn't know the plays. I'm not expecting her to, because you're a GM. You're not really down there on the court directing traffic or none, but I think it was I think I was a little worried when she said she didn't know the plays. It was kind of like a face palm. It was like, this isn't gonna be good. It wasn't gonna be good at all. But in actuality, it's actually turned out better than we thought. She did better than I think any Sparks fan thought she would do, and I'm proud of what she's done, because she coached us to the playoffs. So. Silver lining, I guess.
Shorty, this kind of reminds me vaguely about when the Lakers blew out Mike Brown after starting the year 0-5 and brought in Bernie Bickerstaff, and how the team responded in a fashion where they went on a nice little run there when things were going down south for like did name Mike D'Antoni the permanent head coach for that season in the last year before Dr. Busted passed away just about 2 years ago in the 2013 season. Overall, though, I think, everyone was sort of, stunned, shocked, that they wouldn't name Penny Toller as the head coach. I mean, I was at her first home game, and the team played fairly well until the last quarter, until they lost at the buzzer against the Liberty. But, Shorty, if you had to give Penny a grade for her regular season, what was your letter grade for Penny's first go-around here as the interim head coach for the Sparks, and why?
That's an interesting one. I would give her, I'd say, a B plus. B plus. You said why?
Yes.
Oh, he said what I said.
I say B plus because, I mean, just to piggyback on what Crystal, brought up, it was alarming to all of us when she said that she didn't know the plays. And of course, yeah, we know that she, is the general manager, and she doesn't get too involved in what's going on, as far as coaching staff. But I at least would have thought that she would have known what the team was running, what the coaching staff was running, and to find out that she did not kind of, put us aback like, what? Really? So it kind of seemed like she was coming in, starting from scratch. But, as the season went on, it seemed like she picked up the plays very quickly. And, she had some great assistance from Gary Kloppenberg and Steve Smith. And, when it was all said and done, I mean, credit to Penny, she finished the season with a 6-6 record, which for a first-time coach is very impressive. At least in my opinion, it's really impressive. I mean, before Carol Ross, the team headed into the All-Star break finished 10-12. Penny takes over. They finished 6-6, which is a record of 500. So, credits to Penny for taking over and, for the players buying into, what, she brought to the team and, seeing, like, I don't want to get into depth of what I, think what might have been going on between certain players, whether certain players were happy with, Penny coming in or whether some were not, I can't really get into that because I don't know what went down behind the scenes, but it looked like for the majority of the part, a lot of players responded to Penny very well. And what I did like is that, she ran more plays for KT, which I love. I mean, just a little tad, downer on Carol. It seemed like she never drew up any final second plays for KT, in which Penny did, which led to that, great last second shot against Connecticut Sun, and also, that near buzzer beater against the Atlanta Dream with about 57 seconds to go. But yeah, she came in, the team responded to her very well, and I give a lot of props to Penny. But yeah, that's my grade for her, B+.
Crystal, what do you think about, as you kind of, make up your mind here real quick, your letter grade for now head coach Penny Toller and your reason behind the grade you gave her?
I'll give her a high C, close to a B+. Close to a high C, close to a B. She did well. I mean, I can't really explain why I gave her the grade I did. She did well. I think she did really well. I know I was not expecting her to come in and turn the Sparks around, and it was actually crazy how fast they turned around. I wasn't expecting them to catch on as quick as they did, but they did, and I'm glad they did because now they're in the 4th seed. So I'd say a high C, low B.
You know, I went with a firm grade of B all around because it seems like whenever there's a coaching change, most times players seem to adapt like that, you know, flick of a switch basically to a coaching move. And I think that perhaps the players were, I think it seemed like the players were, it looked to me though that the players were playing very uptight, very, very tense, very tight under Carol Ross, where it looked like when Penny came in, it was more of a free-flowing, open, relaxed. So that's why I went with a high B, because most times when coaches are changed, the players respond quickly, and it just seemed like the Sparks didn't have to play with that 100-pound weight on their shoulders when they had Carol Ross, where it was here, it was, maybe the weight of a feather perhaps on their back, playing those free-flowing open games for those last 12 games of the first run, which also leads me to a question that has really been burning inside, though, about Penny Toller. Now, Shorty, this has been one that you and I have talked about numerous times during the season, off-air or via Twitter perhaps, is that Magic Johnson, we know, Shorty, you've told me numerous times that Magic Johnson basically has Penny underneath that microscope every single time he sees her, saying, Penny, we got to win it this year. Hey, Penny, we got to win the title this year. Penny, we got to win this year. It's like a bug. He doesn't want to go away. He's not going to go on the wall and then break out the fly swatter and kill him. He's going to be there. He's in her ear every day, Shorty. Do you believe, to a question that we have talked about numerous upon numerous times that I can't count anymore on my fingers or toes, is Penny Toller coaching for her other job titles?
Hold on. Give me a second.
It sounds like she's making a midnight snack, perhaps, folks, but really, who cares? We've had other shenanigans go on here on the air, but it doesn't matter.
I would say yes. I would agree that she is playing for her job. And this dates back to a training camp, as we talked about previously. Penny, out of her own words, said that, every day that she met Magic, he has told her, Penny, we have to win. We have to win this year. So he's basically letting her know, I'm not, dealing with any kind of crap this year. I mean, this team has to win this year, or else not only will Carol Ross be gone, your job will be on the line as well. So, yes, I do think, she'll be out if, this team proves my prediction right and exit out of the first round.
Crystal, we got your take last night. I think it was really brief. We got it real quick. But do you believe, though, that knowing that, Penny's always under scrutiny and, she's being watched like this, like through a telescope, basically, or a microscope, that she has to have this team hoist the title either at Staples Center or somewhere across the country at the end of the year, at the finish line, having a parade down Figueroa Street in Chickern Court? Is she coaching for her job titles as well if the Sparks do not win the title this season? Again, they have not won the title in 12 years. Is she coaching for her other responsibilities with the Sparks at this point in time?
Possibly. I can see. I can actually see Magic taking over to be the GM, which would be scary for all of the players involved. Because
bring that now. Let's do it.
Yes, we already know how Magic is, and I can actually see Magic becoming the GM. Would he? I don't know. He's busy. He does a lot of stuff. But if he did, I think that would even scare me as a fan, and I'm not even a player on the team. It'd make me want to go practice some laps and practice perfectly. And I can actually see this being, pretty much a job situation when it comes to Penny. If she doesn't win, or if she doesn't at least get close enough to win.
Yeah, I think if Magic comes in, it's going to kind of. I think if Magic becomes GM, it will sort of remind me of when Pat Riley made the infamous guarantee that the Lakers would win the 1987-88 title and repeat after beating the Celtics in 85-86 at the Boston Garden. He came back to the forum and said, "I'm guaranteeing everybody we will win it again next year," which gave his players, which was Magic, Byron Scott, and Michael Cooper, that extra motivation to work harder over the offseason. I think if Magic becomes GM, there'll be some extra incentives there for the players to do more laps, go do laps in the pool, go have extra shoot around perhaps, because they know that they are playing for their careers as well. And Shorty, this is going to lead me to a point here on the court here involving one specific player, not named Kristi Toliver, but the player that has been the torchbearer since Lisa Leslie's retirement in 2009, that young shot kid that was drafted out of Tennessee in 2008, number 1 overall. And what has happened with her the past 7 years, where it's been, postseason runs that have all ended prematurely for Candace Parker. Now, Shorty, I know that we have, played out the scenarios, of what occurs. We know that she's under contract for at least 1 to 2 more seasons before she is a free agent. Knowing, Shorty, and I know this is, my touchy subject here about this, but Shorty, knowing though that Candace has not won since coming in 2008, and the torch was passed from Lisa to her, and this became the Parker team after Lisa's retirement, any sort of thoughts, though, that perhaps Parker could be heading for the exits in the next coming years, perhaps, in quest, though, of her long-lost WNBA championship trophy, perhaps?
Sadly, for Sparks fans, it's a reality, and I can see it happening if she doesn't get a championship. I'd say by the time her contract ends, I could see that she may give some other teams considerations to possibly make the move to play for that said franchise, because, Candace Parker is the face of the LA Sparks, but in reality, she has so much on her shoulders, and so far everything that has gone wrong with the Sparks, has been laid on her shoulders. Opposing fans question, her leadership ability. Can she lead this team to a title? Talent-wise, they question her capabilities on the defensive end. She is one of the greatest offensive posts in the league, but a lot of people question her defensive capabilities. And there's been just so much on her plate being the franchise star, and so far she hasn't gotten it done, whether it's been her playing, half of a season or not in a season at all due to injuries, or just, her and the team not being, good enough. So I can see Candace, by the end of her contract, possibly considering to go other places. And I know it'll be tough for her because outside of basketball, Los Angeles is her home. I remember seeing an interview with her on TWC where she literally tells people that she's from LA, because it's her home, and she loves Los Angeles and she loves playing here and the opportunities she get outside of basketball. But the question will be coming up soon is, even with LA being her home, will this team and this franchise be, equipped, for her to continue to play, and will they be in championship contention for the next few years? If she feels like they may, have enough to continue on to contend, then I can see her still staying here. But if not, I can see her pulling LeBron and leaving for somewhere else.
Crystal, Shorty brought up a lot of good points, and I'm going to have, a long, lengthy response, as Shorty probably knows. I'm going to have a long response here when we get done with you, Crystal. Just knowing, though, that Candace has come so close in every season but one because of her injury in 2010, where the Sparks had a atrocious season and got the number 1 and 5 overall. Crystal, is there any thought in your mind, though, that perhaps, though, that by the time Candace is a free agent, that she would walk away and go somewhere else, just in pursuit of winning at least one title before she just called it a career, perhaps?
I think there could be a small possibility. Yeah. Um, Now, like Freddie said, LA's her home, so there's a big chance that she'll always come back. But I think there may be a tiny possibility that she would. But at the same time, it seems like she has a lot of love for her team here, so I can see it going both ways, that she possibly could sign and then she could possibly stay. So I can see like a chance of both happening.
Now, of course, we'll come to probably the biggest male diehard Candace Parker fan outside of her husband, Sheldon, which would be myself, perhaps, folks. And I like to look at this scenario, folks, much like the LeBron scenario, as Shorty brought up, and I'm going to up with your folks to say that. The LeBron saga, folks, in my view, was scripted to be just like you would watch pro WWE wrestling. LeBron drafted to his hometown of Cleveland and labeled as the good guy for those few years he was there with Cleveland. And again, played on great teams for the Cavaliers, but didn't get the job done. Then he's a free agent, like we're going to see with Parker in a few years, and he makes up his mind and goes somewhere else. Pro wrestling terms here, he goes from being the good guy to the villain, where he is the most hated person in Cleveland, jersey burnings, the entire backstory of that. He goes to Miami as the villain, basically, and becomes the most hated player on the most hated team with the most bandwagon fans in the entire NBA. But he wins 2 titles there in Miami. Then he has that change of heart to say, look, I've done my winning. Now it's time to go home where it all started. So he goes from being the bad guy back to being the good guy again for the season, bringing all the bandwagon fans in. Now, looking at it here with Candace Parker, and we'll get to Shorty and Crystal's take here, but I think that this story might play out just like LeBron, where Candace, her contract's going to end. He will walk. As much as it pains me and stabs me in the heart and, shoots me in the brain, I can honestly see LA's original CP3 heading out on her merry way out of the Golden State of California to somewhere else. We get to my list of destinations in a few moments here of where she could possibly find herself playing in sometime soon. But as much as it does pain me, and rips the heart out of me and stuff, I could possibly see this happening. Now, the photos folks will stay up here wherever she goes because, he'll probably be remembered playing for LA more than anyone else. But I think, though, it's going to be somewhat like the LeBron saga. She'll be, and depending on where she goes, she could be still the good guy, and perhaps amongst some Sparks fans, she may become the villain, perhaps. But, Shorty, if Candace did leave, just for the sake of winning a championship like LeBron, would you still have the same amount of respect for her as a player in person, basically as a fan of the Sparks in general? If she went somewhere else, would you still have the same amount of respect for her, regardless of what team's color she was wearing in the next couple of years?
I most definitely would, even though with me being a diehard Sparks fan, deep down inside it would hurt me, and it would hurt all of Sparks Nation, but I would understand of her reason for leaving, if she decided to leave because, she has gave everything to this organization. And the fact that, they have yet to get it done, I mean, she may feel like LA hasn't built enough around her, or they haven't surrounded her with the right pieces, needed to be in championship contention. Not just playoff contention, but in championship contention, vying for the WNBA title in the WNBA finals. So, I definitely can see her, walking away.
Crystal, as much as it may pain myself to talk about this as we go to you now, if in fact Candace Parker did leave the Sparks and went somewhere else in the WNBA, do you still have the same amount of respect for her and pretty much love her as much as you do right now as a fan? But if she did walk, do you still have the same amount of love and respect for her as a player in person, regardless of what team she plays for in the coming years?
I would. I mean, we have to. Some of us fans have to remember everything is personal, and everything is not personal to us, but I meant to say, like, for them in their personal life, everything's a business. And
yes,
you have to do what's best for them, and that's one thing a lot of fans forget. A lot of fans are spoiled, and I think once fans get out of that aspect of, it's all about me, then they'll realize that if she was to leave, it'd be okay, and we'd Well, I think we on the Hangout would understand. I'm not sure about a lot of other fans, but I think once people get past that little personal thing that they have, that they think they have with teams, then they'll be okay. Because if she was to leave, I would fully understand it. It's a business. You want to do what's right for you and what's right for your family, possibly, and I'd be fine with it. I'd still cheer for her. I'd still be a Sparks fan, but I'd still cheer for her.
Well, I think everyone knows that regardless of what color jersey she's wearing, that the lunatic over here in San Diego is going to be rooting for her regardless of what she's playing for. And honestly, guys, I mean, I have, during this block here, I've kind of looked over at my photos, because I do have 5 of them on my wall of her over here, 2 that are signed. And it's tough to look over that they're signed, yes, but at the same time, I just couldn't imagine those being of another team. But realistically, though, I mean, going to that other side of the spectrum, though, that I can look over and see her possibly wearing someone else's jersey. Now, destinations I think that Candace would go to if, in fact, she did decide to walk away from the Sparks. I think my top teams right now would be Phoenix, number 1. Which is why I understand, folks. Would be Phoenix 1, Atlanta 2, and then Chicago 3. Now, 1, we know very well of her well-documented friendship with Diana Taurasi from their playing days right now over in Ekaterinburg with UMC had during the offseason. They're very close friends off the court, but at the same time they'll have that, they have that big rivalry ship over here, though, in the WNBA between the Sparks and the Mercury. I say Atlanta for another one as well because that team is geared and they could need, one more puzzle piece perhaps in the coming years. I actually did leave off Minnesota as a third one because the Lynx have been in the hunt, I've got to say, for the past few years, and they're big 3 as well. And then, of course, I mean, for one deal, I mean, I know that Candace calls LA her hometown shorty. She's got to go to her actual home and go back to play with the Chicago Sky because she would have her family there every game, all of her family and friends from Marcus and Anthony. They'd all be there at Allstate Arena to watch her play more than one time every season. So I think it'll be Phoenix, Atlanta, Minnesota, and then Chicago. Shorty, what do you think here? I mean, I know I brought up Seattle and a few off-air hangouts because of her and Sue Bird. But what do you think, though, about possible sites if Parker does walk in the coming years?
I agree with the list that you presented. Phoenix would be number 1 right now because of her relationship with Diana Taurasi, and I think, with them, being the top teams right now in the West, she wouldn't leave the Sparks for a lottery team. That's a given. So she would definitely want to go to a contender if she were to leave. And Phoenix is definitely going to be that contender that she would like to go to. Also, Seattle is another destination that, I think she'll end up. I mean, even though Sue and LJ is in basically near the end of the road, I'd say she'd probably want to pair up and, want to go on one last hoorah with those 2 dynamic players, before their time ends. Also, I can see her going back home to Chicago, and just think of a Delle Donne, Parker, Big Seal host trio. Oh my God!
In motion.
Oh my God, that would be like.
Gotta put Mo Curry on the team.
No Mo Curry, and no April Sykes either. But just that 3-headed monster. I mean, that would be completely nasty if she was to go back home to Chicago. I don't see her going to Minnesota for something like that. I think CP wants to want to join, a roster that would hopefully kick Minnesota's ass, not, pair up with them and want to, be on their side. She would want to go to a roster that will overthrow them. So, yes, Phoenix, Seattle, Chicago, and you brought up Atlanta and her good ties with Michael Cooper. Also, she is really great friends with Angel McCoughtry, so that I can see as a possibility as well.
By the way, if anyone's keeping track of time, we went an hour and 50 minutes without an April Sykes reference.
Before Crystal broke it.
But Crystal, okay, we kind of laid out our roadmap here. What's your roadmap, perhaps, if in fact Candace Parker does in fact leave the Sparks in the near future?
Let me see. I don't really see Atlanta like that. Let me see who I have. I really don't have a number 2. I can't think of a number 2. But I'm just gonna, because I don't have a number 2, I'm just gonna throw some weird ones out there. Chicago's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, you gotta go play with Mo Curry.
No!
And to do it, just for me.
Yo, I'm not at all.
Mo Curry and Candace, are you kidding me? That's a duo right there.
Oh my goodness.
That's a downgrade from LA, to be honest.
And see, number three. I don't see her in Phoenix. I don't think that would work. Too many people. I'm trying to think. Number 3. I really don't have a number 3.
No, there's no need to have 3. I mean, you know, we had a few selected, I guess, for a 3. Now, the only reason why, Shorty, that I don't see Candace leaving is something that was said at Magic Johnson's press conference back on February 5th, where if anyone out there, I believe like Crystal might be, if you are a Dodger fan, if you recall when Magic and Mark bought the Dodgers at his press conference, he referenced that the Dodgers at the time had the best baseball player in the world in Matt Kemp, and still have the best pitcher in baseball in Clayton Kershaw. And if you recall, Magic and Mark restructured those guys' contracts to long-term, hefty salary deals. Now, Shorty, I think, though, that Magic will treat this situation much like Kemp and Kershaw with the Dodgers, that he's going to do whatever it takes to keep Candace Parker here in Los Angeles. And I think perhaps that when she is a free agent, he's going to give her that max deal and she'll stay in LA. But what do you think, though, okay, that, you know, with Magic coming in and his piggy banks and bricks trunks and, you know, wallets coming out of nowhere with that cash wad, would he give Parker that max deal after her current contract does end, much like he did, though, with Clayton Kershaw and Matt Kemp with the LA Dodgers when he bought the franchise a few seasons ago? Would he do the same exact thing here with Candace Parker?
I think he would most definitely give her a max contract because she is the face of the LA Sparks. But really, when it comes to salary in the WNBA, I don't think it makes a difference because all of the stars, basically all of the franchise players, make the same set salary at $107 to possibly $110,000. So money in the WNBA really doesn't make much of a difference. And throwing in that she also makes $1.4 million over in Russia, so the WNBA salary, like I said, isn't going to make a difference. But I will say that, you know, I think Magic will, you know, present a new vision to CP, and like the other owners previous before him, he will set a new vision to Candace Parker and lay out, you know, his future plans in regards to her and this roster later on, you know, in the, you know, later years. You know, he's going to present a plan to her, and he's going to, you know, lay out his details of how he's going to build around her, what pieces will he bring in, and he'll also let her, you know, put in her say-so, and, you know, let her, you know, alongside him, you know, set her plans for what she wants in this organization, because I will throw up that she brought her best friend, Sandrine Gruda, into this year's roster, you know, letting us all know that, you know, Magic will let her have some say-so in the future plans. So with that, I mean, you know, he'll allow her to have her input, which, you know, when an organization let the superstars have their input, that will allow her to want to stay and basically, along with Magic, build the roster to their liking, and hoping that they can contend with the pieces that they bring in.
A interesting note for you folks. I'm sure you guys know that I on my vacation. I had to stop over at LAX, and I just so happened to see one of Magic sporting stores at my terminal. And to no avail, folks, no joke, I did see a Candace Parker jersey on sale at his store. So that's an indicator, I think, in some fashion that. I mean, I don't know if it's a big factor, but I mean, to know though that Magic is, not all about the Dodgers, but is starting to bring in the sparks in promotion in some fashion with his other investment. But Crystal, again, we know that you have a nice big crush, like I do, on Candace Parker with your boy Matt Kemp, and partially with Clayton Kershaw, but also Matt Kemp. But again, overhearing Magic's comments when I watched his press conference when he bought the Dodgers. That they have the best player in baseball in Matt Kemp, and the best pitcher in Clayton Kershaw. Where at his comments with the Spark, he said that we have the best female basketball player in the world in Candace Parker. Isn't that some sort of small indication that Magic's going to do whatever it takes to restructure that contract, much like you did with Clayton Kershaw and your boy Matt Kemp?
Oh, Matt Kemp, how I love him. Of course. I mean, you can't just let one of the best players in the game walk away. You can't do it without trying to restructure something. Now, if you restructure something, she doesn't like it, and then she walks away, that's different. But if you just let her walk away and don't let her know her value or let her feel value, then it's going to be kind of crazy. Then people are going to look at not Mac. See, now you got me saying Matt Kemp. Magic Johnson, kind of like, what are you doing? They're going to kind of look at him like, why aren't you trying to help the cause? So I think he's going to restructure that, or try to at least restructure that contract.
I think Magic's going to go over his head to keep Candace in Los Angeles. Jordy, I know that, you and I have listed a lot of the great players in WNBA history that had great careers and were, franchise faces and household names that never won a championship. Could, in fact, if Candace doesn't win anywhere she goes, could she be another one of those, faces of the league that never got the job done when it counted the most, perhaps?
I'd say it's possible, even though I hope that doesn't happen to her. I mean, because with CP, I mean, she just had so many expectations coming in, her rookie season back in 2008. She just had so many expectations. And if it turns out with all those expectations coming in that, she doesn't bring a championship, I mean, I'd say it put somewhat of a damper on her legacy. Maybe not fully, but it will put a damper on her legacy because, like I said, she was that chosen one. This is where her and LeBron James' careers parallel because they both came into the league in their respective leagues, being that chosen one, being that player who people asked. People didn't question if she was going to win the championship, but how many championships she was going to win. That's how big of an expectation she had coming in, and for her to ultimately never win a championship, possibly, that would not be good as far as, her legacy within the WNBA.
Crystal, Shorty just brought up a great point. There was an interview that aired during last year's postseason about when they did show the last-second loss to the Lynx in 2012 during the ESPN telecast of the game when they were talking with Candace about her staying, being on that championship mission again. And she said, if you were to ask me, my rookie season, when I was, 21, 22, about how many titles I was going to win, I wanted to win. I said, well, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7, and now here I am at age 27 or age 26, and I haven't won yet. That's an indication that people are judging her by not win, but how many, as Shorty did bring up. Your thoughts about her lasting legacy if and when she retires and ultimately does not have the ring on her finger? when it's all said and done and she's in the broadcast booth with me calling the games on Telemundo Cable Sportsnet in the near future?
I think like Shorty said, it'll mess up her legacy a little bit because she hasn't won anything. But I again, like Shorty, I hope she does win something. I feel like she will. I mean, she may be like Tamika Catchings, who finally won hers, a couple of years ago. I think she will win one, though. I don't think she's going to be in the league and not win anything at all. I don't think she's going to be a Rebecca Lobo, per se, to never win anything. But I think she'll win one. It may not be a pretty one. It may take a while, but I think she'll for sure get it. It may be down the stretch, but I don't think she's going to go empty-handed in her career.
Shorty, at this stage, and this is Candace's 7th year in the WNBA, she's going to win at least 7 titles in her career. Do you believe, though, that she might be content with winning, that she might be fine and content with winning just one and then retiring if it's after it's all said and done, perhaps? I mean, if it's, later on in her career and her injuries continue to keep piling up like they have a bit this season?
I'll say, it just depends on, at what stage in her career does she win, a championship. If she wins a championship somehow, maybe this year, or at least within the next 2 years, while she's still in her prime, I could definitely see her wanting to go back for more, because once you get that one title, you're going to continue to be hungry to get more and more afterwards. But if it comes down to where she's nearly at the end of her career, out of her prime, wanting to, make that last stance, and she finally wins one, and I think she will be content with just one title and then calling it a career.
Crystal, what do you think? All right, we're 7 years into this, this great career that has been for Candace Parker. And ultimately, it's all ended in the postseason, either by 1-point losses in 12 and 13, either by injuries in 2010, or even the immaculate shot made by Sophia Young-Malcolm in the 2009 playoffs when the Stars played the Shock in the 2009 finals as well, perhaps, or in 2008, I should say. The Mercury beat LA in 2009, I should say. But but do you think, though, that at this point in time that perhaps sometime soon that she might be content with winning just one title and calling it a career finally after when it's all said and done with winning just one title perhaps in her entire career?
I would think so. I mean, a lot of people haven't even made it to the finals. So all I want as a LA fan is one. I'm not going to be picky and have an unrealistic expectation and say, oh, Candace should win 10. She's not Bill Russell, it's kind of hard to do. So I'd be content with just one. That's all I would want is one. I mean, one is all I'm asking for. If we got one, I would be happy. I wouldn't be upset if all she had was one. I'd appreciate it. That's a hard thing to do to even get to the championship, let alone get one. So one is enough for me.
I think at this point in time, knowing that Candace is in her 7th year, she's looking into becoming, a analyst sometime soon, as a broadcaster. She could be, my teammate pretty soon in about 5 to 10 years on Sportsnet calling the games, perhaps. That I think that at some point in time that I think, it's going to come to that she'll win one and then she's going to, call it quits. And honestly, when her career is all said and done, I hope that all 3 of us in this hangout are at Staples Center to watch number 3 be put up in the rafters at Staples Center after it reads, that there's a 3rd title or 4th, that there's more than 2 titles on that championship banner at Staples Center. Then you have Penny, Lisa, then you got Candace Parker right next to those other legends that are legends of not only the WNBA, but of the Sparks franchise. Guys, I know we went a bit long tonight. I really need to apologize for that because we just got on a roll and going with it about other topics and stuff involving the WNBA. Guys, as we get out of here for the night, again, a reminder that the Sparks' only home game for the postseason, so the first round will be on Sunday, August 24th, when the Sparks take on the Phoenix Mercury. Game time set for 6 p.m. Get your tickets right now by calling 844-GO-SPARKS, 844-GO-SPARKS, or online at lasparks.com. Sparks Mercury Game 2 at Staples on Sunday night at 6 p.m. Shorty, as we wrap up for the evening, quickly give us your quick take again on the Sparks regular season and your expectations for the 2014 postseason in general.
I'll say Los Angeles went through their highs and their rock bottom lows, but they ultimately persevered through all of that to, make the playoffs. And even though I don't expect them to go far, in the playoffs, I hope they prove me wrong, make me look like a fool and go further than my expectations. But I enjoyed being on this show tonight with these great basketball minds, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Shorty. Hang tight. We're going to be ending real quickly here. But, Crystal, real quick as we get to you, your lasting thoughts on that Sparks 2014 regular season and your expectations for the 2014 playoffs are what?
Before I go on, going back to the Candace Parker number to Staples, April Sykes' number going to be up there, too.
Oh, goodness,
no.
And if Mo Curry comes to L.A., hers is going to be up there, too.
No.
Anyway, proceed.
To go on what Shorty said, I would love for them to get out the second round. I don't think it will be, but I hope it's not a sweep at least. I hope that if the team does lose, they do it with a little bit of dignity. I hope they don't go out on a sweep. And I would love to see them get out the second round. I hope it happens. I'm kind of with Shorty. I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to. I would love to get as hype as I did that last game. Yes, it'd be fun. I'd love to lose a shoe again. I would love to do it all. I would love to see KT or somebody hit another big shot. But if it's going to happen, we don't know. Is it possible? Yes. But that possibility is very slim. And just the fact that they got to the playoffs, I'm happy about, because we didn't think that they were going to get that far in the first place.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just thinking about everything that's gone on, the off season, the uncertainty about this franchise and the league in general. That the Sparks could have folded or left for the Bay Area, and perhaps it would have been the death sentence in the end of the WNBA in a whole is one deal. And coming in with so much pressure, so much anticipation, so much hype around this LA team, I think it all got to the players that there was a lot of expectations, or the expectations were ramped up and the pressure was really on to win a title this season. And they played very tense, very tight all season until the coaching change for Penny Toller came in. And, hey, they got to the playoffs for a WNBA record 14th time. Sparks were in the postseason looking for their third title and looking for their first championship, folks, in 12 years. Does it happen this year? Probably not. If it does, thank you for letting us eat our words on the network here about you guys winning the title this year, but good luck playing that Mercury team in the first round. But, folks, our time finally has come to an end here on the Fabulous Forum. For Crystal Thomas, Shorty Mama 24, and Chris Woodmansey, who ducked out a few hours ago because he had to go to sleep. No problem, folks, with that. Until tomorrow, folks, have a safe night. Drive home safely. Thank you for coming, and good night now. This has been the LA Sparks 365 Network. We'll talk to you folks tomorrow night as we get very close and closer each passing minute, second, day, and hour of the 2014 WNBA postseason. Action begins on Thursday and Friday on ESPN2, NBA TV, and if you're in California, on Time Warner Cable Sports, and when the Sparks take on the Mercury on Friday night at 7 o'clock. So, folks, have a safe night. Drive home safely. Thank you for coming, and good night now. This has been the LA Sparks 365 Network. See you folks tomorrow. Bye-bye.